So you want two balls, a small one, a long one with one ball, and you really want a soft ball for this because some of these triggers are going to be quite nasty. And then two balls in a sock, but with a space in between. Okay, so we'll start with a salamander just to sort of really wake up our nervous system. So just standing relaxed, and you're going to you put your fingers behind your ears, you've got your mastoid process. If you point inwards, that's where C1 is, the top vertebra in your neck. So you're just going to drop your arms, drop your shoulders, and take the back of the right ear towards the middle of the right shoulder. So there's no turning the head, there's no rotation, and then you're looking down at the right shoulder. So you're feeling the stretch in the neck, you're feeling stretch in the neck muscles, and you're also feeling stretch in the eyes. So there's quite a few things being stretched here. So this is a really important one, just to keep good alignment in the vertebra of your neck. As soon as you feel that you get the sigh to swallow the yawn, I've just got mine now, you can look up and away. So that way you get two of the eye, the vagal nerve in the eye, you get two of those releases as well. So this is probably the most productive one because you're doing so many things in such a short space of time. They're all good. We've got 12 cranial nerves that come out of the brain, but if you're short of time, this one's really the best one to do because it really looks at that alignment in the neck as well. I've got my swallow there and a bit more saliva in the mouth. When you come out of this, put one hand under your head and just support your head to come back into center so that the neck muscles don't have to work too hard on this other side. So move your head. I like to make a circle with my nose, and that seems to relax my neck a bit quicker. And then think about where the back of the ear is on the left side, left ear to the middle of the left shoulder, and you're looking down at the left shoulder. I've got my yawn really quickly on this side today. So sometimes you get a really quick response. Sometimes you've got to stick with it for the 30 seconds. And I think if you've got time, do it for the 30 seconds because it's really increasing blood flow to the brain. So the longer you're in this, the better, really. And just a little bit longer so you've all got a chance to catch up. So after at least 20 seconds, you're looking up and away. So you keep that strong stretch in the eyes, you're staying in that position. Really good for mental focus and clarity and alertness. And just really increases oxygen and blood flow to the brain. So again, when you want to come out of this, just support your head, bring your head back into center and just do a few nose circles. So it's going to bring the top two vertebrae back into correct alignment because they tend to shunt forward and then move into rotation, which compresses the base of the skull and the blood flow into the brainstem. So it's a really important one to do. Grab your one ball in a sock, and hopefully you've all got a long sock because that just gives you a little bit of movement. And you're going to go to the universal trigger points. The number one universal trigger point is your TFL in the front of the hip, but this one here, where the shoulders come into the neck, is number 2. So they're both always needing attention in pretty much 100% of the population. So you're going to put the ball, the triggers, if you put your thumb at the front, 2 fingers at the back, and then just squeeze, you'll find that trigger. Just move around a bit until you find where it's painful. And then put the ball at the back, and you're going to lean into the wall. Hopefully this angle is good for you all to see me. And if you wanted to, you could take your thumb and you could press from the front into the ball. Now, when you're using the wall, there's something that you really need to keep an eye on is make sure the ball is in the right position. Don't go into a sort of like you're doing the limbo, you know, where you're trying to go down the wall and your bottom's miles from the wall. And you're sort of wiggling around. That's really not good for the back. So you want to put the ball exactly in the right place, be standing sort of parallel with the wall. So you're still in a fairly neutral spine, and then add your pressure. So you see some really horrible positions when people are using the wall. You know, they can be either head up and craning, or their bottom can be miles away from the wall. All these things are really bad. You can, if you wanted to, you could do a little bit of head movement. Okay. So the general rule for neck pain is if you turn your nose to the same side shoulder, to the side that you're working on, if you feel pain in your neck, it's your trapezius, which is what we're doing now. If you turn your head away from that shoulder and you feel pain in the neck, it's your levator scapulae, the muscle that attaches from the shoulder blade to all the vertebrae of the neck. So I'll repeat that. If you look towards the shoulder and there's pain, that's your trapezius. If you look away and there's pain, that's your levator scapulae. Sometimes it's both, depends what's going on in your neck. So just keep applying the pressure. So we're working on trapezius. So what you're going to do is you're going to look forward, and then you're going to turn your head towards the side that the ball is on. And then you're going to look forward. So that's called torsional release. So you're stretching the muscle as you release. So this trigger point can be really painful. And you want to be, in terms of pressure, you want to be about a 6 or a 7 out of 10 in pain level. So don't go above a 7. And 6 is the ideal. 6 is dealing with the trigger point without pushing you into too much pain and defense. And if you're like me, I'm noticing that my pain is going up as the muscle is releasing. So big muscles, deep muscles, they don't tend to yield their tension and their triggers easily. You've got to relax them to a certain degree, and then you're going to go deeper into the muscle tissue. Then you're going to find your trigger point. So this is ischemic pressure, where you're cutting off the blood supply for up to about 90 seconds. If after 90 seconds it doesn't really do it, then you would just leave it and you'd go back to it and you'd do it again on another, you know, later on in the day or maybe the next day. The other thing you could do, if you wanted to, now that you're sort of getting further into the release, is you could try an arm float and turn the head towards the arm that's rising towards the side the ball is on. So again, you're moving the muscle, you're mobilizing the muscle as you do the release. Okay. So before we do the other side, we'll do the neck test, because I should have done that at the very beginning. So start by looking towards your left shoulder, and if you feel pain in the neck or the back of the shoulder, that's your trapezius. If you feel pain as you look away from the shoulder, that's your levator scapulae. Okay, so do that again. You turn towards it. If you feel pain at the shoulder, at the neck, that's your trapezius. If you feel pain as you look away, levator scapulae. So same thing, you're going to put your thumb at the front of your trapezius. I have got a picture of trapezius here. So it goes from the base of the skull to the peak of the shoulder and then down to the bottom of the rib cage on both sides. So it sort of looks like a diamond. So from the skull to the shoulders to the point of the lower part of the rib cage. So we're in here, and you're going to put the thumb at where the shoulder meets the neck. You're going to squeeze with the thumb and the 2 fingers, find your trigger, and then you're going to stand against the wall. Make sure you're standing nice and straight. You haven't got your bottom sticking out away from the wall, and that you're in a fairly relaxed and neutral spine. So it's really about moving the ball around, getting it in the right place. Having it in a sock is great, because then you hold the end of the sock and it's not going to sort of jump out and roll across the floor. So it gives you a degree of control. So again, so you go back to the torsional movement in the neck. You're pressing, you're trying to find a 6 to 7 in a scale of 10. You're looking towards your shoulder and the pain will go up. You're looking forward and the pain will go down. Make sure you're breathing. Remember, the breath is probably the most important thing because it's talking to the brain and it's through the vagal system and it's telling your brain whether this pain is okay or not. It might be dangerous. And so the brain is trying to perceive, is this a safe pain or is this something we need to address? So if you stop breathing because you're in pain, that's going to send messages of fight and flight. Okay. So you're doing it for about 90 seconds. If the pain is going down, if you're doing really well and the pain is going down, I've got a kitten that's just joined me. I knew I should have put him in the bedroom before we started. If the pain is going down, same side arm may be floating. So the arm is creating not so much torsional release, but more pressure into the ball. It's the head turn that gives you the torsional release. So it's a good demonstration of how connected this muscle is to your neck. So the upper trapezius has got the ability to cause pain in the skull, behind the eyes, migraines, cluster, headaches, in the jaw, and in the neck itself. So quite often neck pain, you need to look at the two muscle groups, the main muscle groups to look at are levator scapulae and trapezius. They're the first two that you can check. So you hopefully the pain level in the trigger is going to come down. So at this point, towards the end of the 90 seconds, you could try pressing a little bit more firmly into the ball. The pain might go up, but then it should quickly drop down. So that's a surefire sign that you're releasing that trigger point. Okay, so trapezius trigger point number 2, if you put your opposite side hand to your right shoulder, where your middle finger is as you wrap your hand around, sort of below the spine of the shoulder blade, right towards the edge of the shoulder, you should find a point of tenderness there. So you're going to put the ball against the wall, you're going to hold the end of the sock, you're going to just check your position. And you're just going to breathe. So if you look at your shoulder blade, I'll just show you a quick diagram if you can see it from where you are. Your shoulder blade has got a spine that runs across, and you're just under the edge of the spine towards the outer edge of the shoulder. So people tend to think that when they feel that ridge, that's the top of the shoulder blade, but the top of the shoulder blade is almost at the height of the slope of the shoulder. It's just that it's covered in muscle. So you're below the spine, you're right on the outer edge of your shoulder. If it's painful, you're definitely in the right place. So this one is usually so painful, you don't want to wiggle around too much. But again, you could just turn your head towards the shoulder. It's not going to be quite so painful now because this is more middle trapezius, this range. So middle trapezius, I'm just looking at pain patterns. Middle trapezius tends to send pain into the middle band, into the spine. So sort of upper thoracic spine. Whereas the upper trapezius is sending pain up into the head. And then your lower trapezius tends to send pain to the shoulder blade area. So you could, if you wanted to, you could try a bit of an arm float. So the arm float, as the arm goes up, it just means that there's more downward diagonal pressure into the ball. So it's just a way of sort of increasing the pressure, lowering the pressure. And I can feel, even though this middle band is more the spine, I can still feel through the fibers that there is influence in my lower neck from this point. So towards the bottom of my neck, not so much higher like the other one was. You can move your nose right to left, like if you're feeling it in your neck, move your nose. You could do, draw a circle with your first finger. Move your nose. So if it's painful, remember you're taking the deep, deep breaths. You're not holding your breath. Some of these can be so exquisitely painful, they actually make you feel a little bit nauseous. So that's when you've really got to go to focusing on the breath, focusing on what you're thinking about. So that's about 90 seconds. So take your opposite side hand to the left shoulder. Your middle finger is pretty much in the right place, just below the spine of the shoulder blade, towards the outer edge. I found my tender spot really quickly. So you find that place with the ball. You just check your position, so make sure you're not leaning out from the wall and doing something horrible to your spine. So below the spine of the shoulder blade, in the outer point where the muscle comes out to the edge of the shoulder, it actually attaches to the top of your arm bone. So it's the inside the top of the humerus. And then just get your position. So it's all about getting the ball in the right place rather than wriggling around to find it. So keep moving the ball, make sure you're in neutral spine. You can move the head. So I think with shoulders, they're both going to be upset. They're both going to be out of balance. If you're right-handed, the right side might be a bit worse. If you're left-handed, same. But, you know, we use both arms when we're doing difficult movements. So I saw someone yesterday and she'd been in the garden. So she was cutting something with the right hand, but she was steadying it with the left. So that's a typical example that when we're doing stuff, we're using both arms. So these muscles are going to get quite irritated if we do things for a long time. So turning towards the shoulder, maybe adding the arm float. If it takes you into too much pain, then reduce your movement and bring it down to your 6. Take your deep breaths. So typically pain, triggers in the neck will refer pain up into the skull. Triggers in the trapezius refer pain up into the neck. The scalenes, like we say, the side of the neck, they're the only ones that refer pain down because of their influence with they refer pain down into the arms because they're connected to the ribs. So whenever you're doing something, if you don't know enough about it, just do above and below where you've got the pain, and then hopefully you'll figure out which triggers are active. Maybe you're doing your circles. So for me, this side is really painful, but it is coming down a lot quicker than the other side was. If you want to, towards the end of your 90 seconds, you're just pressing that a little bit harder. The pain goes up, and then it should start to drop. If it goes up and it keeps going up, then you probably need to just leave it alone and try again later on in the day or the next day. And with trigger points, you know, if you feel improvement, then it is a trigger point. If you do this and there's no improvement at all, then it's probably not myofascial, it's probably more to do with the skeleton and, you know, some other issue. So the benchmark for trigger point work is you feel some level of improvement. If you don't, then it's not your triggers. Okay, so then we're coming into the lower trapezius. So if you think about the 2 inner edges of your shoulder blades, you're going to go about halfway down, just on the inner edge of your shoulder blade. So you could, at this point, change your sock to the 2 balls, and you're going to, if I look at the skeleton again, you're going to sort of be just here and here in the lower half of the inner edge of your scapula. I don't know if you can see that. because I can't see myself on a large screen. It's hard to frame, but so halfway down the inside of your shoulder blade, and just put two balls together and just on the inside of your shoulder blade. Again, check your position for your skeleton, for your spine. Make sure you're fairly parallel to the wall. You haven't got your feet and your bottom too far out. And push the balls against the inner edge of your shoulder blade. And just maybe just slightly glide right, left until you find anything that feels a bit tender. So if you're not quite in the right place, move the balls, don't move your body. So check neutral spine. So these ones are going to refer pain into the, it says here the lower neck, so there's a connection to the neck through the nervous system, but mainly around the shoulder blade area. And maybe just put the hands together, just float the arms. So what you're doing is you're just using the weight of the arms to slightly increase pressure. Take some nice deep breaths. I actually can feel the lower part of my neck as I'm doing this. So at least, you know, if it's an area that's not painful, mine's getting more painful the longer I do it as the muscle relaxes. But if it's not painful, then, you know, give it about 20 seconds and try in exactly the same place on the other side. Again, inner edge of the left shoulder blade. So you can do these again on lying down on the floor. But when you do that, you've always got to focus on what's going on in the neck. When you're standing, you can keep the neck out of it. I'm just moving across now to the left side. So for me, this part isn't so bad. So you're pushing up against the inner edge of your shoulder blade about halfway down. And if you're not in the right place, just move the ball. Don't go into bending the knees and pulling the bottom away from the wall. You could sort of even rest your bottom against the wall in this one, I think. So floating the arms. Yeah, it's getting worse the longer I do it. So don't do something for less than 20 seconds because you might not have relaxed the muscle enough to find the triggers and move on thinking it was okay when actually it was just sort of, it was too tense for you to reach it. If you feel any influence in the neck, move the head, move the nose right to left. So just a little bit longer. So if we move on too quickly and you found something that's really painful, you can just stay there and stick with it, or you could just go back again later today and try that one particular place on its own. So come back to the one ball in a sock, and we're going to come to levator scapulae, and we're going to do just one. There's 3 trigger points for this muscle group, but we're going to do the one that's on the upper inner edge of the shoulder blade. So if you look at the shoulder blade, it comes up and then it cuts across at an angle, and you can feel with your opposite hand, you can feel that diagonal angle of the upper inner edge of your scapula. You can feel this deep, deep muscle there. So you're going to get your ball and you're going to put your ball into that diagonal, just outside of that diagonal border. You might need to hold the ball just to keep it in this position. Make sure your bottom's not too far away from the wall. I was trying to push my bottom out to get more pressure, but you don't need to do that. The muscle will relax. And what I want you to do is I want you just to wrap your arms around the inside of your elbows so that your arm muscles are relaxing. If your arms are hanging, your muscles are quite tense. You want relaxed arm muscles, and you're just going to very gently just going to float and then relax. So in the upward movement, the muscles are active. The downward movement, you're relaxing. So just keep going with that. Take some deep breaths. Okay, so now let go of the elbows. And I want you now just to take your eyes and look down to your opposite hip. So that's really going to stretch levator scapulae. So you're looking down towards the opposite hip. You're looking forward. You're looking down. You're looking forward. Just see how that feels. If that's taking you into too much pain, you go back to just holding the elbows. If you're feeling that you could do a little bit more, how about as you look to the opposite hip, you float the same side arm that the ball is on. So you're bringing in torsional release. You're using the leverage of your arm. And then if you use the muscle, if you pull your shoulder blade down as you float the arm, the muscle that you're releasing is going from active to relaxed. So that gives you a much quicker release, but it might be more painful. So if it's too much, if you're going above a 7, then reduce your movement and just find a level that you're comfortable with. Take some deep breaths. I know I'm probably about a 7, even moving towards an 8 on this one. So you've either got to convince your brain with the breathing that everything's okay, or you've got to make it easier. Laura just got a nice release there. Your vagal system is letting go. So yawning is really good. We've been taught for years and years we shouldn't yawn in public, but yawning is really good for the nervous system. So if you yawn, you're just balancing, you're relaxing. That's great. One more. So try that on the other side. So you find the diagonal angle with your opposite side hand. You find the deep muscle that's just outside of that. You put the ball into that diagonal line, into the muscle. Now I can tell straight away this side's much more painful. So just check your spine, make sure you're in neutral spine. And even though you know you can get more pressure by pulling your bottom away from the wall, don't do that. Just wait until the muscle starts to relax. So if you want to go stronger, you're just going to hold the inside of the elbow. You're just going to float the elbows, lower the elbows. So you're just testing the muscle just to see where you are in that scale of 10. So anything that's going to move your shoulder blades is going to torsionally release this muscle. So now we've done that a few times, let go of the elbow and now start to look down to the opposite side hip. So you're moving your head through rotation, you're dropping your chin, and that's really going to stretch this muscle. So if you want to do more, you're going to turn the head to look down to the opposite hip. You're going to float the arm. So all of these muscles, I think you're going to find both sides are influenced. Slightly more on one side, but both will be fairly unhappy. The shoulder girdle is very active. So if you want to take it even further, slide the shoulder blade down on the side that you're raising the arm. Deep breathing. Two more. So using a torsional release with a trigger point release is more advanced work. It's going to give you a quicker release. So just take the ball away for a minute, just do a shoulder roll, Move your nose, see how the neck is feeling. So the next ones we're going to do are the rhomboids, and the rhomboids are little small muscles that come diagonally down from the beginning of the thoracic spine down towards the top edge of the shoulder blades. So, or the top half of the inner side of your shoulder blades. So you're going to take the one ball and you're going to go to the, if you think of the shoulder blades, the two inner edges, as two zones, you're in the upper zone, but right up against the medial, the inner border, and you're going to just keep moving the ball around until you find anything that feels painful. I found mine straight away. Mine are obviously quite unhappy. So there's 3 triggers down that inner upper edge of your shoulder blades. Make sure your bottom is not moving out. Remember, it's not about pushing into the wall, it's about allowing the muscles to relax. So again, come back to linking, putting your thumbs at your elbows and crossing your hands. You're trying to relax your arm muscles, and that's going to just really relax that area between the shoulder blades. And if you sort of float the arms, it sort of brings you into a slightly rounded thoracic spine. So that's going to stretch those muscles torsionally. Okay, so pain from the rhomboids, I'm just looking at my little chart. It's really quite local, inside edges of your shoulder blades and the actual shoulder blade area as well. So if you feel pain in that middle band between the shoulder blades, around the shoulder blades, it's likely to be these rhomboids. So you could move up and down and you could just find the most painful places. So as you lift your elbows, the upper back is rounding, which is stretching your rhomboids torsionally. As you lower your elbows, the muscles are relaxing so the ball can go deeper. So you're lifting your elbows, you're rounding, lowering your elbows, and the ball goes deeper. Take some nice deep breaths, move your nose. Even here, I can feel connections into my low neck through the fascial system. I don't have neck pain usually, so I'm sure if you have got neck pain, you're probably feeling it a bit more than me. So these muscles are very active, you know, when we're using our arms, gardening, all these sort of things are going to fire up these muscles, make them fairly unhappy. Bad posture. If we continually sit in a rounded spine, these muscles are going to get over lengthened and lock in a long position. So, you know, if you had more time, you could go down and work that whole area. Other side, you could use 2 balls in a sock as well, now that you know the area that you need to be in. Make sure you don't do what I just did, which is step away from the wall. The temptation is always to step away from the wall and bring the bottom out. And you just got to keep coming back into that nice upright spine. Just allow the muscles to relax. If you're not in the right place, just keep moving the ball around. That's why the sock is really handy until you find that place. You know when you're on it because instantly the pain shoots up. So for me, I'm not as bad on this side, which is good. But I have found a little bit of something. So fold your thumbs into your elbows, drop your arms, so that relaxes the arm muscles, so you get that downward stretch through the rhomboids. And then as you lift your elbows, the upper spine is rounding and the muscles are stretching. And then as you lower them, they're softening and relaxing. Combination of the two. Connect the breath with the movement. Any tension in the neck, move the nose. Looking right, looking left. So for me, it started off as relatively painless, but it has gone up. I'm probably about a 5 now, from a 3. So that's what I mean. Give yourself at least 20 seconds to really make sure that there's no problems in this area. And now it's even gone up to a 6. So I'm really finding this trigger now. You can minutely move the ball. So if you're in the sort of the peripheral area of the trigger, then just minutely move your body right or left and see if you can find the dead center of that point. So for me, I just moved slightly to the right and then I was completely on the trigger. And now it's coming down quite quickly. Nice deep breathing. Okay. So we'll do infraspinatus, which is you've got the spine of the shoulder blade, and then you've got the flat plane of the shoulder blade underneath. There's about 5 triggers here. So if you get the 2 balls in a sock, go to the right side and put the ball under the spine of the shoulder blade. So if you think of the shoulder blade as Africa, the spine goes across the top third area of it. So anything in the bottom 2/3 on that triangular plane is infraspinatus. Infraspinatus is always fired up when you're doing things at shoulder height. So typing, gardening, anything like that, maybe even painting for Carol. As an RSI injury, as you keep doing it for a long time, these triggers get very irritated, and then it doesn't take much to fire them up the next day when you start to do something similar with the arms again at this height. So, you know, this is quite a typical thing. And so you're just going to move your body slightly right, left, find those triggers, because there's 5 of them, and you're sort of trying to find the right area, the right one, and then just stay there. You could do an arm float, do a double arm float. So infraspinatus, the pain goes into the shoulder, the outside of the shoulder, and down into the arm, into the fingers. Nice deep breathing. Move the neck. So we'll do it fairly quickly because I want to get to the spine. So now try the other side. You can always come back to these if you found something particularly gnarly, you could come back. So think of the Africa. You've got the spine of the shoulder blade is on that 3rd way down line, and then 2/3 under is infraspinatus. So for me, I can feel I've actually got some really more active ones on the left side. So I don't know why that is, but they're there. So these ones can be particularly painful. You don't know that there's a problem and you put the ball there, and then you're actually usually quite surprised at how much pain is in this area. So again, arm floats, deep breathing. You can do a little bit of sway from right to left as long as your spine is comfortable with that and you're not bringing your bottom away from the wall. Yeah, for me, I think I would need to come back to this one because it is quite bad. But so, you know, more time this evening when you're watching television, you could just grab your sock again and give it a second go. So now we're going to come onto the floor. So I'll move my camera, come onto the mats. Hopefully we can see the mat. Yes. So I did have this here just to say that if a ball is too painful, you can always go for a soft football, let a bit of air out of it against the wall, and that's a kinder option. So we're going to come into our suboccipitals, the base of the neck, of the skull. The pillow's there if you need some support. So if your head tends to hang back towards the floor, you need a little bit of a pillow. if your head is nicely aligned, you don't. 2 balls in a sock with a bit of a space in between. The spine is not going to be hurt by the balls, but you just want that little bit of space, and you're going to come right under the rim of the skull. So this is, again, this is one of the most productive places because of the suboccipital muscles and how they affect your upper spine. So you might need to hold the ball with the fingers either side, and you're just going to come into some nodding. So the nose up and down. You want the balls to be pushing up under the rim of the skull. Hopefully you can all see me. I think you can. I can't tell because I'm not mainframe. So you're just nodding. You could do a little bit of right to left. So the suboccipital triangle, you've got muscles that run horizontally along the rim of the skull. So right, left is going to address them. And then you've got vertical ones that run up and down the processes at the side of the spine. So nodding up and down is going to get to them. And then if you turn your head to the right and just stay there and do a little bit of nodding there, you're going to get the diagonal ones that run from C2 up towards the mastoid process. They're usually the ones that have the greatest influence in the neck. So they can all be unhappy. You've got the horizontal ones, the vertical ones, the diagonal ones that go from C2 towards the back of the ear. Generally, they're the ones that you're going to get the best release. It's safe to do this with a ball, a soft ball, but you wouldn't do this with anything harder than a soft ball because you've got an artery right in the middle of the triangle. It's quite deep, but you just don't want to put too much pressure on that area. So come back to nose in center. So you're going right to left, the horizontal muscles. And then you're nodding, nose up and down, the vertical muscles. And then you're turning your head to the left and just doing a very minute up and down with the nose. That's your diagonal muscles. If you were using something that was too hard, you might start to feel a little bit sick, a little bit dizzy. That would be a sign just to stop and move away from that area. So I've got very soft, squishy balls that aren't going to do any harm. They're so soft, they're hollow. You could do it with a towel, a rolled up towel. That's another way that you could do these muscles. So for me, the diagonal one is very tender. Just take some nice deep breaths. So then from here, you could bring the 2 balls down to the middle of the neck, and that's where you might want to bring your pillow in and just put the back of your skull on the pillow so that you can decide how much weight you put on the balls. Same movements, you're just nodding up and down. So these are your strong capitis muscles that come down the back of the neck. These have got the ability to refer pain into the skull, into the eyes, into the very top of your head is a classic point for these triggers. So it's always good to keep an eye on them. So do about 10 nods, right to left. That's going from right side to left side. And then you could come a little bit lower just by pushing with your feet. Just push your bottom up a little bit so you're a little bit more on the pillow. And now I'm on C5, 6, and 7. So you've got that really big vertebra, which is your first thoracic vertebra. And I'm just above that area. And again, just nodding side to side. There's no blood vessels here that you need to worry about. And it's deep, deep muscle. And you're really just pressing on the muscle that overlays the processes that come out at the sides. So really nice to do. So then after you've done that, you can lift your chest slightly and come just below the big vertebra, which is your postthoracic vertebra, and just see how it feels here. So make sure the head and neck is supported, and just take some deep breaths. So once you get into the thoracic vertebra, you can bring in some arm floats. So we're working through the multifidi muscles, the muscles that are very close to the spine. You can, if you're doing this at home, you could come out about 1.5 inches, and you could come into the middle band of back muscles, or you could go out even further, 3 inches out from the spine, and you could do the outer band of spinal muscles. So there's 3 layers. There's the ones that are just out from the spine, and then you can go out a bit further, 1.5 inches out, and then you can go out further 3 inches. And you can go all the way down the spine to the tailbone, and you can just really work on the tension in your back through these long muscles, erector spinae. So again, you can just move your pillow, push with your feet, and as your bottom moves up, the balls will roll down. And I'm sort of at the level of the top of my shoulder blades now. So I put a knot in my socks so that the balls don't just move away and come out. I've got the knot sort of set at the width of the balls that I want to maintain. And that way it gives you a degree of control. Floating the arms, check your neck is supported. You never want your neck muscles hanging towards the floor. Your back muscles won't relax if your neck muscles are dominant. You have to keep an eye on what the neck is doing. You can even just take some really deep breaths here. So you can keep pushing up with your feet, rolling the ball. I'm gonna wiggle down a bit because I'm gonna end up rolling off my mat here. So I'm gonna come down. So I'm sort of in the middle of my shoulder blades now. So once you get sort of middle thoracic, you might start to feel tension in your spine. What you do then is you just put your hands under your bottom so that you lift your pelvis and you can control how much weight is going onto the balls. You can also put a pillow under your bottom if you want to as well. So you decide, you're the one that's in charge of how much pressure you're using. So the top 3/4 of your rib cage are quite strong because they connect at the front of the rib cage. Once you get to the lower quarter of your rib cage, they're not connected at the front, and that's the last one is like a floating rib. So you have to be much more gentle in the bottom quarter of your rib cage. And also you're just above your lumbar spine, which if that's tight and out of balance, then the lower thoracic is going to be tight and out of balance as well. So you just have to be really respectful. As you go down, you're being careful. So again, you could just move the ball with your hands or balls with your hands, or you could just push with your feet just to roll the balls down the spine, hands under the bottom. So I'm sort of level with the bottom of my shoulder blades now, the inside edge of the shoulder blades. I'm starting to bring in some pelvic tucks. So as you tuck your tailbone, you can apply a bit more pressure. I still want my hands under my bottom because my back doesn't like to be in too much of an arch. If my bottom is dropping to the floor, my lumbar spine is lifting towards the ceiling, and that doesn't feel comfortable. So it depends on your spine. If you've got lumbar spine issues, use your hands, use a pillow, and just take some of the curve out of the back. So once you get to the bottom towards the lower quarter of your rib cage, you can lift your bottom and you can bring the balls down with your hands. And at this point, if your neck is in good alignment, you don't need your pillow under your head anymore. you could put the pillow under your bottom. So that way you're really controlling how much weight is on those balls. So do that if you feel uncomfortable in the lower thoracic spine, in the lumbar spine. I think now I'm actually okay. I'm just going to put my hands there, which is a little bit lower than my big pillow, and that just gives me the perfect amount of pressure. So, if you have got lumbar spine issues, as you get here, you're going to maybe notice that there's some really tight, locked up muscles. So remember, you could repeat this and go a little bit further out, 1.5 inches and come down, or you could do it a third time and come out 3 inches and go down. You're going to find all sorts of muscles that are quite uncomfortable. So I'm right at the bottom of my rib cage now. So I'm really putting my hands under my pelvis. I'm being very gentle because I know these ribs aren't very strong. And I'm just still working those muscles that run down the sides of the spine. And one of the best places to do for the lumbar spine is if you come under the lowest rib, in the space between the 12th rib, the lowest rib, and the top of your pelvis. Quadratus lumborum is a muscle that stabilizes your lumbar spine. It's often very locked up and very tight. And so this is a really good area to do. And again, you can do them close together, quadratus lumborum. You can come out a little bit further. You can stretch those balls. You can either push the balls together or you can pull them wider and just find where it feels best for you. So once you get to QL, you could, do pelvic tucks, but maybe try a slow knee lift and just see how that feels. So when quadratus lumborum is short and tight and locked up, it's going to radiate pain into the glutes, into the hips, into the SI joints, or maybe the tension is coming up from the hips, the glutes, and the SI joints. But either way, you're going to really start to work on balancing the pelvis. Okay. So at this point, you could turn on your side and you could let the two balls push up under the outer border of your erector spinae. So if you take your free top hand and put it just next to the spine, you can feel that there's a band of muscle that is pretty much the width of your hand. Hello, pussycat. Width of the hand, and you're trying to find the outer border, and then push your ball right up against that outer border. And that way you'll get to the erector spinae and also quadratus lumborum, which is underneath the erector spinae, so it's deeper and closer to the spine. So maybe if you've got the two balls, one at the front, one at the back, you could do a little bit of rolling. Make sure you're not moving in your neck. You don't want to undo the work we've done for the neck. You're just rolling front to back. So quadratus lumborum is one of the main muscles to look at if you've got imbalances in the hip, if you've got SI joint dysfunction, if you've got lumbar spine issues, then it's always a really important muscle group to look at. And you could make this stretch a little bit stronger by just extending your bottom leg. If you roll, you think about rolling like a log. And try not to move the bones of the neck. You don't need to. So you could put your head on your shoulder and you could just roll the whole body and you could just relax into this place. So bend the knees, come up into sitting, change sides. So again, you're going to put the ball under the 12th rib in the space between the rib cage and the pelvis. If you find with your thumb of your top hand, that outer border of the thick band of back muscles that are in that space, your balls are one slightly in front and one slightly behind, and then you're just going to roll forward and backward. So you're using that upward pressure into the back muscles. If you extend your top leg, then you're going to get a little bit more stretch, torsional stretch in the muscle. So just move those balls around so they feel like they're really pushing up under the muscle. Just watch that 12th rib, that low rib. You don't want the pressure there. It will feel uncomfortable. Take some deep breaths. So bend your knees, come into sitting. So just to finish now, you could do this one lying down. You're going to come into a mermaid position. You're going to put the ball somewhere on your bottom. So I've got the middle ball right in the center of my glutes, which is piriformis, and then the other one is sort of upwards into glute medius. We've sort of run out of time to do the glutes, unfortunately, and just sort of roll on to the balls and roll off, and just find anything that feels a little bit tender. So if we had more time, we'd go through all the individual muscles. And the reason that you want to do glutes after you've done quadratus lumborum is because they are connected, and if one is out of order, then so will the other one be. So if you were doing an autopsy on a body, you wouldn't be able to see where the glutes end and the QL starts. They just sort of melt into each other. So the forces transfer up and down through the quadratus into the glutes and vice versa, and especially up through the SI joints as we're walking. So you always do them both together. They work together. So there's lots of sore places here. So when we finish the class, you might want to just do an extra 5 minutes. Change to the other side. So I'm sort of coming into a mermaid position. And so I'm sitting, and I want one of those balls right in the middle of your cheek. So that's going to be piriformis, especially with the leg in this position. You'll know because it will be a little bit painful. And then just sort of rock your body forward and back so that you use both of those balls to get to glute medius is above. Glute medius is what is connected to QL, not piriformis, but piriformis is always a good one to check. So today's class, or pretty much at the end, is ball in a sock, but really it was your posterior kinetic chain. So it's the muscles in the back of the body and how the forces as we're walking translate from the feet right up into the skull and the neck. There's not enough time to do the whole body in one class, so you have to sort of pick and choose where you're going to go. But hopefully you found a few places there that are really going to help your neck, your shoulders, your posture through your upper spine. And then, like I say, the long muscles of the back, along the spine, and then again, 1.5 inches out, and then again, 3 inches out, and you're going to get all of the erector spinae. And you're going to definitely find places there that just need a little bit of attention.